following a trend that recently I started, a topic I take up, which I dealt with, I call it the four gates, which I also took from Sabama book, the meditation, the four gates to enlightenment. And I've dealt with serenity, make it into a 4-week type of a topic. We do with serenity, contentment, spiritual inquiry, and the last was good association. But there was some question come up, so I continued because I was go back into the eyes. And the question, I tried to relate the eyes together with the 3 layers of the temple, showing how in the first layer of the temple, where we have what is called the common folks, or the Reiki, or people just with aspirations, they come to the temple, rightly enough, but they are not really committed. They are not committed people in the sense where we say to organizational structure or even to their own aspiration. They are not really committed. There are reasons for that also. So I was showing that in the first layer, they got 3 main layers of the eyes, and in the first layer, which is the corona, and the scash layer is how they call it, where light gradually began to penetrate into the eyes in order that, well, we say we can see images to the end of time, because we know everything we see is as a result of light. So that becomes what I call the first level in the temple, the peristyle, where students or people just entering and having, Then the second level, the hypostyle, is where I call it the style, the place of commitment. That's where people now make a commitment based upon their aspiration. So they are no more on the outside in the first layer anymore. They're moving deeper now into the temple, which is that second layer of the eyes where light is going deeper and being controlled by the muscles through the retina, going into the eyes. These muscles and them, as I tried to show, represent the teachers, the priests and priestesses who are in the temple, teaching the students who come to the second level how, in the sense, teaching them how to control their emotions, physically, emotionally, spiritually, helping them to transform themselves from what we call the mortal being into the immortal being. And then we see them move from the second level into the third level. That's where light penetrates deep down into the eyes now, where we have the photoperceptors, which goes into the retina with the 10 rods and cones, which give an image. That's where image now is performed, where we can see now something and bring it into what we call an image, where we can work with it. So when the student has reached the holies of holies, which is that stage, the third level, then that student is transformed. The student is transformed, as we'd say, from a mortal into an immortal, because he has gone through those stages as what we call initiations. And this is what I try to show on the question of the eyes, the 3 main layers of the eyes, and the layer of the temple, the 3 main layers of the temples. Also, inside in the second level, I look at it from the point, I give it a little twist, call it the level of commitment. And in that level of commitment, I'm trying to show across the line here the importance of being committed. Because for the many years I've moved around, see people come and go, questioning why. Then I began to realize people are not fully committed to themselves. If they are not really fully committed themselves, then in the external world, their behavior will just what we see. There's no full commitment in that sense because there's a lack of understanding. And when one is lack of understanding, then one act out of ignorance. So the question come up on the commitment. So I decided to show in the best way the question, the power of commitment. So that's the topic that I looked at and called it the power of commitment, which is in the second layer. And I look also at a piece of glyph, looking in the dictionary, and I took this piece of hieroglyphics out from the dictionary. Now, there are more layers to it, dimensions, I would say, but I just take it as it is in this sense because I think it can tell the story of commitment or give a definition what it is to be committed. So it says, Esnu, which is Senu, and we have the same thing going across there again, to make an opening, to force opening, cause of, to reveal. So I looked at that, and also I looked at Solomon's book, In the Tree of Life, and read the story of Auset and Ra, and other stories, and I'll go deeper into the story in the sense, reading the story. So I looked at the myth very carefully and looked at Auset, and show how Auset is showing us, teaching us the question of commitment. Auset dedicated herself when she came to time and space for the welfare of mankind. And in that dedication, she found herself studying everything that was there. And she become what we call, let me use the common term, bored with the world. It says that the million of men, she get tired with that. Now she wants to be amongst the coos, the spirit. So she adapted the coos, the spiritual way of life. And in that spiritual way of life, she wanted to know more than just having the aspiration. So her aspiration leads her to a committed state. So her aspiration leads her to that state of commitment. In that state of commitment, she wanted to know her father's or her grandfather's name, which was Ra. And she challenged it. She challenged it in the sense that she know the whereabouts of Ra. How he rise in the morning and his movement. She watched his movement very carefully. And as a result of that, she was able to plan. She was able to plan successfully. And that's the aspirant in that sense. Not only having aspiration, one must be committed also to the aspiration that they have. One must be able to chart the course. One must be able to be very observant and be mindful of what they are doing at the time in order to be successful. And this goes not only to be a spiritual aspirant, but this goes across the board. Because when we look at it, across the board, there is commitment. In love, war, education, social living, anyhow you take it, there is aspiration, there has to be commitment. So it's across the board. So Auset in herself said, you know what? I want to know Ra name. So what she did, she take the earth and she knead it together and created a snake. It says at one point she created a spear, long spear, which she turned it into a serpent. and she placed it into the part of Ra. And by she placed it into the part of Ra, knowing his movements, when Ra coming into his path, he gets stung by the serpent. Now that he got stung by the serpent, he began to cry out. Pain, the fire of Ra has left him. He began to get chilly and cold. He began to cry. What has happened? He knows something is wrong, but at the same time, he cannot tell exactly what it is. All he knows that he gets stung by a serpent. And there it is. Auset comes in. Well, I have words of power. I can help you. And Ra said, well, yes, I need the help in this sense. Let's go local with it. I need the help in the sense. Well, she said, well, yes, I can help you, but I need something. And it's so aspirate from your state of aspiration, move you into a state of commitment. That commitment becomes magical. It becomes something, it becomes a powerful force to open now, you understand? To open, to force, to cause, to reveal. You see? So Auset now is moving with that committed force that she had there in order for Ra to reveal what she wants. And that's the aspirant has to be moving on him or her commitment in his spiritual aspiration or whatever the life may be. The commitment is supposed to be there. If there is no commitment, then there is no success. There's no accomplishment. And we see this all over again. There are many people dovetail and dove in and say, well, you know, this, that, and the other, because there is no commitment. One has to be committed to the aspirations. When one is committed to the aspiration, then one is not living according to time, but one is living according to the value of the aspiration they have. You see? Ra said at one point, well, if I supposed to stop the sun, the heat, what would happen to the Nile? The aspirant has to combine his commitment mentally, physically, and spiritually must be there. If it is not there, then, as I said before, its accomplishment is not. So the needing of that earth that Auset needs is the mental. She began to think. She used the physical, that earth, and spiritual psychology she used in the sense to force Ra in order that Ra tell her what's his name. So when Ra couldn't take the heat anymore, Ra said, well, all right, I'll tell you my name, because Ra gone with a long dialogue. Well, I'm the one who created the sun, the moon, this, I do this and that. She said, well, yes, in the sense I know all of this, but you're not telling me the truth. What I want to know is your name. Well, you know, he dodged and beat and all of this type of thing. Well, the aspirant has to realize in his travels, his spiritual journey, things are not going to happen overnight. But the commitment that the one makes, that's the only way he or she can force. Let me say, and when I say force in the sense, I'm not talking about an ignorant way of life here. In the context, you understand? Then one can bring the energy up in terms of his breathing, his exercise, his meditation, in order to accomplish the goal that he would know also as Auset know the name of Ra. See? So what she did, she said, well, all right, if that's what you intend to do, I'll play with you. Let's go this way. I'll play with you too. So he said, well, you know, so when he couldn't take it anymore, he said, well, all right, now, I'm ready. I'm going to tell you. So those who are in his boat, he asked them to leave. And then he go into, let me say, a secluded space and expose himself and tell them now to come in. Well, when we are committed, the power of commitment in the sense, make an opening, calls for commitment, which becomes a driving force for all accomplishment of whatever the goal may be. When there is commitment mentally, physically and spiritually. The combination of these three becomes a pointedness, penetrating whatever obstacles and bringing about the accomplishment of whatever the goal may be. So Auset penetrated, and so the spiritual aspirant, in his commitment, penetrating along the line. So all we call the negative emotions that trails him in his trail all along the line. Now he or she has reached a point where these negative emotions have to take a back seat. Because why? The mind becomes one-pointedness now. The mind becomes one-pointedness. The person now is not living a suspended life. The aspirant now is living in the present. So the aspirant is living a mindful life. Is in the present. He's not suspending his life in terms of a future. He's not suspending his life in terms of the past. Projection and past. No, lives in the future now. And because he lives in the future now, all these negative things are trails along the line in the boat. So the mind that was occupied and turning back on the individual can no more have the opportunity to turn back on the individual, because you are in control of the mind at this point. So Auset now get into the mind of Ra, because he opened up now. And now that he opened up, she was able to penetrate. Commitment becomes a magical force. It is a magical force, because when we are committed, it is the current. See? Commitment is what transforms a promise into a reality. It is the energy, the electrical current that is needed to make things happen. It is the power to change the face of things. I mean, we can say a lot of things. We want to do this and we want to do that. We can read a lot of books too. We can understand. But where's the commitment? See, when we are committed to it, that's the time, the driving force behind our commitment puts us in the position where the magical current that runs, because we're seeking to accomplish. So which means, let me use this term, we're strategizing, we're planning, we're observing, we're living in the presence. We are not living a life, let me say, helter-skelter anymore. We're taking time off with ourselves now. So we are not blocking the space anymore, but we are allowing the space to be open so we can see exactly what is coming into the space so we can deal with it. When we can do these things there and then, we lift ourselves from all these amount of negative things that bogs us down along the line in terms of past and future and all of these things. We live into the present because of our mind becoming one-pointedness. We're seeing the divine all along the line. In everything we do, we're moving with the divine now. Commitment is not a matter of time, but commitment to the value of whatever the goal may be. So it's not a question of time, because we may set goals rightly. Now, what is goals? Goals are not the value. Goals are what we call in the journey, something we acquire along the line. But values, in the sense, doesn't really have an end. But the goals that we put our values into the goals. So then the goal become a valuable goals. So when we acquire the goal, we don't stop. We keep going because we are committed to a value. We are committed, the power of value. We are committed to something greater than the goal. Commitment is more of consciousness rather than time. So we can set goals and we can say, yes, I want to accomplish this in this time and this time and this time. Yeah, that's good. But the commitment is more than that. It is not just a question of time. It is a question of consciousness. Are we conscious of what we are doing? Are we conscious of where we're heading? Are we conscious of what we really want? Are we committed to what we really want? Are we observing what is really happening? Are we with ourselves in the present? Or are we still into what we call conditional mindset? Our conditional mindset in terms of the ego way of life. Commitment is having the mental stability in order to pursue and see it through. Commitment is having that stability no matter what it is. Having that stability. And that stability pushes us because sometimes it doesn't work out the way we want it, but because we are stable, we are mindful, we have that one pointedness because we're penetrating. That one pointedness gives us an opportunity to pursue. Even though, as the Proverbs tells us, those who understand, and I put it this way, those who believe will be ridiculed. So even in the state of ridiculation, people ridicule you. You yourself, because of the ignorance in the mind, the ego in the mind, even turn back to your own self, so your mind turn back on you now and telling you, hey, you can't do this, that, you know. And that in itself put you in a peculiar situation. Doubts and conflict internally, and then externally you expressing that. So as you're thinking, is so you're acting. You see? So it's a question here, the stability, but once there is stability, then your pursuit, it doesn't matter. Because why? You know exactly what you're doing because it is a valued goal. You're pursuing a value and not just a goal. It's a value. It's something of value. So you to gain enlightenment, it's a value, let's put it that way. It is not a goal in the sense that we could, we could gain this tomorrow. No, you cannot gain that tomorrow. That has a lot, let me say, that have a lot of dependence going along the line. But because it's a valued goal, you have to pursue it. And Auset pursued. She saw how she pursued. Till Ra in itself, he gave up. And he opened up and said, well, come in. And she was able then to gain his name and become, call it, the mistress of the universe. She becomes like him. So in our pursuit of our enlightenment, we have to have that power of commitment. That power of commitment is what helps push us along the line. And we too will be able to gain our enlightenment irrespective of what the situation may be. Irrespective to the conditions. What we want is the mindset, the values we want. Not so much of the goal, but the mindset, the value. I think I said it before. One living in a multi-million-dollar home and one living in $100 home shack. There isn't much difference inside there. The difference here only depends on how one thinks. One is being sheltered by the roof above his head and being guarded by 1,000 guards. One is being sheltered by the roof above his head and can relax comfortably within his house because his mind is free. One eats in a golden bowl and one eats in a wooden plate. Eat the same food. You see? It all depends on the mindset. So it's how you're thinking. You see? So once you have the mindset, this is what is important. The one-pointedness of the mind, the value goal that you're looking for, that will be able to force, let me say, force your way, let me use the term, force your way into the bosom of Ra. You see? That gives access because the more you keep doing your meditation, the more you keep doing your breathing exercise, your physical exercise, your yoga exercise, the more you keep at it, the deeper you go with it, as it closer. Ra feels your vibration is coming close, so he feels the heat of the serpent energy coming up. And because he feels the heat of the serpent energy coming up, then he's allowing himself to be what we call open for the investigation of who he really is. But we have to get rid of all those that are in the boat.